Wow, we are a chipper group this morning. Well done. Our glorious hour of convening has arrived, and the Senate will now come to order. I'd ask that any unauthorized persons exit the chamber. And it is my honor to recognize the greatest rules chairman this chamber may have ever seen, the senator from the 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your kind words. Moment in history before I get down to business. In 1817, the New York Stock Exchange is founded. And I believe you've been there too, Mr. President, to make sure they were doing the right thing. Also, in 1983, United States President Ronald Reagan calls the Soviet Union an evil empire, which I think is pretty much true today for Russia. Also, the senator from the 7th told me it was Peanut Cluster Day, and he's a peanut farmer, or at least something like that, I believe. And also, the Secretary of the Senate told me today, is National Proofreading Day, because he proofreads everything. And as he has proofread the journal, it has been read and found to be correct. He still don't know I'm talking about it.
Unlike most days, that was very insightful. Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? The chair hears none, and the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Are there any motions to reconsider? Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to reconsider Senate Bill 345.
Senate Bill 345?
Senate Bill 345, correct.
345. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
Senate Bill 345, a bill by Senator Mullis of the 53rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 50 of the OCGA relating to general provisions regarding state government so as to prohibit state and local governments from mandating vaccine passports and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson, the 1st District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 48th has moved that the Senate reconsider its actions in passing Senate Bill 345. Is there objection? There is objection. The chair would like to recognize the senator from the 48th to speak to the reconsideration. You have 3 minutes from the well.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't think this is going to take a full 3 minutes, but basically my point in reconsidering Senate Bill 345 is not to make the point that we should or need to be requiring vaccination at this moment as a condition for attending schools or participating in government services. My point is simply that we should not be removing options that we could consider in the future, or more to the point, that the Department of Public Health could be considering in the future for circumstances that we cannot yet anticipate. So basically, I would like to reconsider taking out a tool from our toolbox in future response to this pandemic or other public health emergencies. Thank you. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion to reconsider? Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Look, this is just a delay tactic from the loyal opposition. This is their filibuster effort, and they've delayed it a weekend, and I appreciate you voting it forward. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I yield the will.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair would like to ask, are there any motions to excuse before we take a floor vote? Are there any motions to excuse? Chair recognizes the senator from the 40th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 41st.
Without objection, the senator from the 41st is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 33rd.
Without objection, the senator from the 33rd is excused. Are there any additional motions? Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th.
I'd ask unanimous consent to excuse the following senators. The senator from the 35th, the senator from
What was the last one?
33rd, and senator from the 43rd, senator from the 39th, senator from the 55th, senator from the 42nd, for business inside the Capitol.
Senator from the 33rd has already been excused. The chair, without objection, excuses the senators from the 35th, 43rd, 39th, 55th, and 42nd. All right, the senator from the 48th has moved that the Senate reconsider its actions in passing Senate Bill 345. All those in favor of reconsideration will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. This is a vote on the motion to reconsider. On the motion to reconsider, the yeas are 16, the nays are 33, and Senate Bill 345 will not be reconsidered. Are there any additional motions to reconsider? The chair sees none. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is There is a motion to reconsider. The chair recognizes the senator from the 13th. Chair recognizes the senator from the 13th for a motion to reconsider.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, please make a motion to reconsider the bill.
Which bill?
Hell, I don't know.
Senate Bill 474?
That's the one.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
Senate Bill 474, a bill by Senators Summers of the 13th and others, a bill to be enacted and act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to property tax exemption so as to provide for a statewide exemption from all ad valorem taxes for aircraft used for the aerial application of fertilizers and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler, the 52nd District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
The senator from the 13th has moved that the Senate reconsider its actions in failing to pass Senate Bill 474. Is there objection? There is objection. For what purpose does the senator from the 15th rise?
I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 2nd.
Without objection, the senator from the 2nd is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 13th to speak to his motion to reconsider Senate Bill 474.
Good morning, colleagues. I come to you today to ask you to please consider voting green to reconsider 474. This bill is simply a bill for all of us. It has nothing to do with partisan politics. It is people that feed us. It is people that take care of us. It is our farmers. It is about Georgia people. It's not about us. Please reconsider this bill. It does not do any good to hold this bill up. Thank you, and I wish you would vote green. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 22nd to speak to his objection. He waives. Any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion to reconsider Senate Bill 474? The chair sees none. As a reminder, this requires a 2/3 vote. Actually, take that back. We're doing a motion to reconsider. Take that back. The senator from the 13th has moved that the Senate reconsider its actions in failing to pass Senate Bill 474. All those in favor of motion to reconsider will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the motion for reconsideration, the yeas are 34, the nays are 17, and the motion has prevailed. Senate Bill 474 will be placed on the general calendar. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills or resolutions, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. For what purpose does the senator from the 13th rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to say thank you to the folks for reconsideration. Ask the bill to be tabled until we get to it.
We'll approach you at the proper time. Mr. Secretary, first reading a reference of Senate bills and resolutions, please.
Senate Bill 604 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 50 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to veterans and veterinary technicians so as to provide for the State Board of Veterinary Medicine to be an independent
Regulated
state agency.
industries.
Senate Bill 606 by Senator Burns of the 23rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 4 of Title 10 of the OCGA relating to self-service storage facilities so as to shorten the time.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 608 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state flag, seal, and other symbols so as to expand
Government oversight.
Senate Bill 609 by Senators Mullis of the 53rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 9 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to access to medical cannabis.
Health
so
and
as
Human Services.
Senate Bill 610 by Senators Harrell of the 48th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 4 of Title 49 of the OCGA relating to medical assistance generally so as to
Health and
require-
Human Services.
Senate Bill 611 by Senators Al of the 48th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 6 of Title 40 of the OCGA relating to rights and duties of pedestrians so as to provide
Public
for-
safety.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, first reading a reference of For what purpose does the senator from the 10th rise?
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to suspend the rules to allow, Rule 3.1-2, suspend the rules to allow SB 612 to be read for the first time and referred to committee.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
Senate Bill 612, a bill by Senators Jones of the 10th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to provide for a new charter for the city of Stockbridge, as amended so as to change the corporate limits of such municipality and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 10th has asked for the rules to be suspended so that Senate Bill 612 could be first read and referred to a committee. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is assigned to Slogo. Mr. Secretary, first reading on reference of House bills and resolutions, please.
House Bill 1178 by Representatives Bonner of the 72nd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Part 5 of Article 16 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to review of removal of students in elementary and secondary education so as to provide for the protection of the fundamental right of parents to direct the upbringing and education of their minor children.
Education and youth.
House Bill 1183 by Representatives Gunter of the 8th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 6 of Title 17 of the OCGA relating to bonds and recognizance so as to provide for an increase in the time allotted to try a criminal case in judicial
Judiciary.
emergencies. House Bill 1352 by Representative Smith of the 133rd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 12 of Title 44 of the OCGA relating to disposition of unclaimed property.
Special Judiciary.
House Bill 1377 by Representatives Burchett of the 176th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to general provisions relative to income taxes so as to authorize private causes of action for equitable relief regarding the failure of employers.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1407 by Representative Green of the 151st, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act to provide for a new charter of the City of Dawson approved April 12th, 2019. So as to
Slogo.
House Bill 1431 by Representative Hitchens of the 161st, a bill to be in town and act to provide for the creation of one or more community improvement districts of the City of Rincon.
Slogo.
House Bill 1432 by Representatives Wade of the 9th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act creating the Board of Elections of Registration.
Slogo.
House Bill 1444 by Representatives Nix of the 69th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act providing of supplementary salary for the judges.
Slogo.
House Bill 1463 by Representatives Green of the 151st and others, a bill to be in town and act to authorize the governing authority of Daughtry County to levy an excise tax pursuant to
Slogo.
House Bill 1466 by Representatives Green of the 151st and others, a bill to be in town and act to authorize the Magistrate Court of Daughtry County to impose and collect county law library fees as part of the court costs in the Magistrate Court to provide for
Slogo.
House Bill 1469 by Representative Benton of the 31st, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act providing for the new charter of the City of Jefferson, approved.
Slogo.
House Bill 1470 by Representatives Ralston of the 7th, a bill to be in town and act to authorize the governing authority of Gilmer County to levy an excise tax, approved pursuant to sub.
Slogo.
House Bill 1472 by Representative Seebach of the 34th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act providing for a new charter of the City.
Slogo.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Ms. Secretary, will you please read the reports of standing committees?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Banking and Financial Institutions has had in consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that Senate Bill 491 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Brass of the 28th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Education and Youth has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that Senate Bill 377 do pass by substitute, Senate Bill 328 do pass by substitute, Senate Bill 575 do pass, Senate Bill 545 do pass, Senate Bill 603 do pass, Senate Bill 498 do pass by substitute. Also, notice that a minority report has been filed. Respectfully submitted, Senator Payne of the 54th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that House Bill 1302 do pass and House Bill 1320 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that Senate Bill 516 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd District Chairman.
Oh my gosh.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that Senate Bill 421 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Kauser of the 46th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Retirement has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that Senate Bill 167 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Robertson of the 29th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that Senate Bill 481 do pass by committee substitute, Senate Resolution 507 do pass, Senate Resolution 542 do pass, Senate Resolution 544 do pass, Senate Resolution 603 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Mullis of the 53rd District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Science and Technologies has under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that Senate Bill 581 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dolezal of the 27th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State Institutions and Property has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that House Resolution 204 do pass, House Resolution 664 do pass by committee substitute, House Resolution 683 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harbison of the 15th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Transportation has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that Senate Bill 558 do pass by substitute and Senate Bill 586 do pass, and Senate Resolution 596 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Ginn of the 47th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read bills and resolutions for the second time?
Senate Bill 212 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd and others. Harry Grisner Rural Georgia Jobs and Growth Act enact. Senate Bill 519 by Senator Tippins of the 37th and others. Solicitors General of State Courts, Honorary Office of Solicitor General Emeritus, provide. Senate Bill 534 by Senator Kennedy of the 18th and others. State government, certain procedural requirements and considerations for the adoption of rules by state agencies that are applicable to charitable organizations, provide. Senate Bill 537 by Senator Jones II and others. Georgia Food Insecurity Eradication Act enact. Senate Bill 562 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd and others. Department of Administrative Services, companies owned and operated by Russia to bid on or submit a proposal for a state contract prohibit. That completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, it's now time for our morning roll call. We've already had a long string of motions to excuse, but of course the senator from the 33rd has some additional motions to excuse, I would presume.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, y'all. I'd like for unanimous consent to excuse the following senators for business outside the Capitol: the senator from the 41st and the senator from the 16th.
Without objection, the senators from the 41st and 16th are excused. Are there any additional motions to excuse? The chair sees none. The secretary will call the roll of senators. Signify your presence by voting the yea switch. The secretary will unlock the machine. All right, it's now time for a morning devotional. And I would ask that all senators take your seats and cease all audible conversations. And grateful for our doorkeepers. Ask them to secure the chamber at this time. It's my honor to recognize the senator from the 35th to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and to introduce us to a very familiar chaplain of the day.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Pledge allegiance to the flag. you, sir. It's a great day in Georgia, a great day. It's International Women's Month, but it's also a great day with all the yellow roses around here. But this is the day that the Lord hath made, and we shall rejoice and be glad in it, because Dr. Ron Bigalke is a prolific author. He has countless magazine, newspaper articles published. He has 5 books in his name, in addition to contributing chapters to several multi-author works and nearly 30 articles to various expository and theological journals. He has 100 of articles published in various references, works such as encyclopedias, handbooks, and he served as associate editor for several encyclopedias. Dr. Bigalke has instructed courses for Bible colleges and seminaries and continues to hold professorship in apologetics and theology, in addition to serving as a research associate with the Missions and Ethics Project of the University of Pretoria. His church and leadership experience includes conference speaking, pastoral ministry, pulpit ministry, the youth ministry. Ron is an ordained minister and is certified in apologetics evangelism by the North American Mission Board. Dr. Bigalke also serves as a church plant pastor through Biblical Ministries worldwide. His teaching experience includes service as a secondary teacher and administrator, in addition to service on several school boards. He is also a member of several Christian professional societies. His training includes years of service through the local church. Dr. Ron has 7 earned degrees, including 2 PhDs. We see him all the time and didn't know anything like that about him. His greatest ministry, though, is serving as the Georgia State Minister for Capital Commission, a national ministry with a ministry presence in 26 state capitals and full-time ministers serving as missionary pastors. Capital Commission is a nonpartisan, non-denominational ministry focused upon providing gospel hope and spiritual strength for government leaders in seeking to provide pastoral care and attention to our capital. Pastor Ron considers the State House to be his primary congregation, whether that be legislators, staff members, or lobbyists. In June 2020, he was appointed the official Senate chaplain of the General Assembly. As Pastor Ron's ministry at the Capitol has grown, he and his family recently moved all the way from coastal Georgia in Effingham County to Hall County, Flowery Branch, to serve the Capitol community more effectively and readily. So, without further ado, Pastor Ron, and I don't think you brought your beautiful wife, Kristen, and your 2 children, but I know that they're here in spirit with us. So please come and bless us in this capital. Thank you. Pastor Ron. I'm going to move out your way. I'm in slow motion. Okay.
Thank you, Senator James, for that very kind introduction. I don't know if you recall when we first met. It was, I had to think about it for a while. It was back in 2011 with Representative Mac Jackson, and we worked together to organize a clergy day. And since then, Senator James has just been a great friend to me and always been available to anytime I stop by her office, no matter how busy she is. She's always willing to sit and talk Scripture and pray together, even tell her staff to join in that prayers with us. So I very much thank her for being my sponsor this morning. Thank you for giving me a few moments to share with you. I want to talk to you about peace this morning. you just kind of whisper that word to yourself, peace, and you can almost feel your heart just relax. When you're at peace, you can feel just an inner confidence that things are not chaotic, regardless of the circumstances. Your mind's at rest. Your heart doesn't beat erratically and with anxiety, and if you have peace, your focus is definite. Now, far too often, peace can almost be like chasing a butterfly. I remember my daughter when she was young, very entertaining watching her in our backyard trying to catch those elusive butterflies, and more times than not, they won and she lost. But peace can be like that. It can be like chasing a butterfly. Even Christians chase after it and find that it's just beyond reach. Perhaps the rarest of all virtues, true peace, authentic peace, comes when you truly believe what God has revealed in the inspired word, the Bible. Peace is something that's desperately needed between nations, just as desperately as it's needed between neighbors. You know, human nature is we can be a warring people. You know, at the centermost point of our convictions and feelings, beneath all of our easygoing artificial shrouds, sometimes we're just fighters. And most people don't live at peace with themselves, so it stands to reason they can't live at peace with others. And so that's true sometimes amongst those who are Christians, even amongst those who are not Christians. Very few find the ability to live a life that's calm, that's deliberate, that's free from anxiety. So if God promises peace, and he does, let's discover how to find it in the most stressful of days. Carefully consider Isaiah's prophecy, Isaiah chapter 26, verses 3 and 4, because I assure you, resting near it is that elusive butterfly. And it says there, "The steadfast of mind you will keep in perfect peace, because he trusts in you. Trust in the Lord forever, for in God the Lord we have an everlasting rock." So let's consider that promise, discover the secret to peace. It says steadfast. That means to lean for support. Of mind, that means to frame or to form. And so together this phrase means God will give complete peace to you if your frame of mind is leaning on something or it's supported. So on what should you be leaning? Well, on God, as the verse says, "The steadfast of mind trust in you." When you trust God, you refuse all other supports. You lean your entire weight on the one who gives stable support. So can God support you? I'm glad you asked the question. Yes, he can. Verse 4 says, he's an everlasting rock. And how will he support you? It says in two ways. He will keep you, meaning he will guard or watch over you, and he does this with perfect peace, which in Hebrew is that well-known word, shalom. Literally, God will guard you with shalom, peace, an unending security, an uninterrupted rest, and a complete calmness. Now, do you notice where that complete calmness originates? It doesn't originate from you, but from God, whom you lean upon and trust. So, is it any wonder then that humanity is frantically searching for peace, and it just leaves so many empty-handed because they're looking in the wrong place? Scripture says that God's peace is such that it surpasses all comprehension. So if you want a good summary of our devotion this morning, it's this: God gives complete rest to those who lean on him for support, to those who trust him as an immovable and a strong rock. So in what circumstance do you need peace today? Maybe you're facing a worrisome situation, then lean on God. Did you feel panicked, uncertain what to do? Trust God with that. Are you worried regarding responsibilities that you have, votes that you need to make? Surrender it to God. He promised you shalom, peace, if you put your entire weight against him, not yourself. In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." So can the Lord support you? Yes, he can. We already read that in Isaiah. God is an everlasting rock. Now, of course, it would hurt if we fell on a large rock, a solid rock, but it's not the idea of falling, you remember. It's the idea of leaning. It's the thought of leaning on something that will be perpetually supportive, firm enough to sustain your weight. So that's the scene of a tranquil, restful mind, even in spite of circumstances. What a marvelous, just limitless promise. This is not merely print from a page in the Bible. This is a biblical principle that works in the difficulties of life. It demands application. That's what I want you to do as a result of today's devotional. Today, choose one thing that distracts you, one thing that disturbs you, and intentionally give it to God. Release your grasp on it, let it go, and who knows, in its place, you may find a butterfly resting in your open hand. Let's close in a word of prayer.
Lord God, so long as our mind is merely focused upon ourselves, we will not have peace. So help our leaders, myself, everyone in this room, cease from looking at self and thinking of ourselves and look unto Jesus Christ. Cause us all to recognize that faith is an outward look, not what I think, feel, or have done, but it's who Jesus Christ is, what he has done, and how crucial it is for his people to direct their lives toward him. So grant our senators, our lieutenant governor, the secretary of the Senate's office, all their support staff, grant a frame of mind that is sustained by you, Lord. May all those trusting in Christ and living in dependence upon you, God, know your everlasting support. This I ask and pray in the name of my Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you.
Are there any unanimous consents? Hearing none, we'll move on to points of personal privilege. Does any senator have any want to rise on any personal point of privilege? Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to congratulate the Georgia State Panther men's basketball team. For the fourth time since 2015, Georgia State is heading back to the NCAA tournament following a 80-71 win over Louisiana on Monday night in the Sun Belt Championship game. Georgia State won the 10th straight game and is now heading to the NCAA tournament for the 6th time in program history and the first time since back-to-back tournament appearances in 2018 and 2019. Go Panthers! Thank you, Mr. President. I yield well.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Dean of the Senate, the senator from the 15th, for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is March 8th. Every year I try to remember those brave Marines that were the first Marines to land in Vietnam. On this date, in 1965, a contingent of 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines of the 3rd Marine Division landed in Vietnam. They were the first combat soldiers to land in Vietnam, to join something like 25,000 military advisors there. The invasion was a response to attacks by communist forces in South Vietnam that had killed about 60 Americans and injured about 1,000 other soldiers. We landed from, I was on the USS Henrico. We had been on that ship for something like 60 days and 90 days with the 9th Marine Expeditionary Brigade at that time. So I'd just like to commend and remember those brave men who served their country at that time. So I certainly appreciate you remembering the 3rd Battalion, 9th Marine, the first combat soldiers to land in Vietnam. In addition, later on, something like the first major battle was done by the United States Army airborne troops, and I'd like for us to remember that era. Gone but not forgotten, a lot of them. They gave it all. Thank you very much, President. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for your service as well, and we all owe them a great debt of gratitude. Chair recognizes the senator from the 20th for a point of personal privilege.
Mr. President, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
No disrespect to my colleagues that are running for statewide office, but dang, isn't it true that you look mighty good up there?
The senator knows of what he speaks. Does any other senator want to rise on a point of personal privilege? Yeah. Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th.
Thank you to our humble Mr. President. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow is Scout Day at the Capitol, and to celebrate early, you have big bags of popcorn on your desk. And I hope that you'll join us tomorrow in room 125, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning for a Chick-fil-A breakfast. After that, at 8:30, there'll be a short presentation on the South Wing steps. So please come by tomorrow and see your scouts that are coming to visit you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th on a point of personal privilege. After that, it'll be the senator from the 25th. We have a lot today.
Good morning, colleagues. This is just a reminder that this is Women History Month, so do respect all women at least this month. I want to start in all sincerity by quoting one of my favorite women, one of Mother Teresa's favorite text in the Bible, which she often quoted to support her ministry of the poor. I just want you all to hear that again. Mother Teresa, one of her favorite texts in the Bible, which she often quoted to support her ministry of the poor, is truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And that's found in Matthew, in case you've forgotten who said and who did. But I was proud to be a part of the ceremonies this morning. As you can see, most of us ladies are wearing black with our yellow robes on. I am going to remind you all, we typically take a picture, a group picture, ladies, all of you in here in the chamber. But it is in honor of one of the people that I have utmost respect for, and that is Nikki Randall, who actually was in the House when I served in the House, a good leader who is now outside making real money. So I am wanting to stand here and say thank you to my honoree, Sakari Johnson from down in Clayton County, who is doing some phenomenal work, young and upcoming with a lot of energy to do a lot of good works for the county of Clayton. Thank you, Mr. What am I calling you? Mr. President. I yield the will.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 25th on a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to recognize my good friend and family members and big supporters. We got Jackson Butts County Day here. They're up in the balcony. Let's give everybody a round of applause here. So, yeah. We got our Chamber of Commerce. They do a great job. We got local elected officials here as well as business leaders, and they do a great job. And we've got a great community there in Jackson, Georgia, with a lake and 2 state parks and interstate access and all kinds of wonderful things going on right there in Middle Georgia. So thank y'all for being here today, and thank you, Senate. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st, and next it'll be the senator from the 35th if you want to make your way down this way.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I want to bring to you a little history on President Biden's first day in office. He signed several executive orders. One of the ones that he signed was to halt the drilling of fossil fuels on all federal land. And we are all now paying the price for that executive order. When President Biden was sworn in, gas was $1.70 a gallon. Driving to the Capitol today on Peachtree, gas was $4.59 a gallon. This is a tax on all of us, everyone sitting in this chamber, and to our residents of Georgia. The war in Ukraine has caused some of this, but even before the war, gas was $3.39 a gallon. And I want to give you one example. If we were able to drill just in South Dakota, we would surpass what we are buying from Russia today. Just in South Dakota, not on any other federal land. We would surpass what we're buying from Russia today, which is actually helping Ukraine fight against Ukraine, fund that war. And to think we were even thinking about buying from Iran or Venezuela with their human rights record is outrageous. I ask, let's get back to energy independence and $1.70 a gallon gas at the pump. I yield the will.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th, and after that will be the senator from the 9th. While the senator from the 35th is making away, senator from the 3rd, did you have a inquiry or just did you wish to go to the well? Senator, we recognize the senator from the 35th. You had your other.
I just want to say happy birthday to my daughter and my aide, Leslie. I know you see her around. She's looking really old because of her age. I shouldn't say that since she's my daughter. Give her a hard time if you see it. And thank you all for the prayers for my husband.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th. State your inquiry. Senator from the 17th.
Mr. President, isn't it true that wheels are starting to fall off the bus at this point?
You know, I'm sure Ron would be very disappointed. Thank you,
I have
Senator.
further inquiry, Mr. President.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true the senator from the 19th has had his button pushed for some time, yet you refuse to recognize him?
That would be true. Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce, and I'm looking up to see, oh, there you are. I'd like for Miss Diane Matthews to stand with our South Fulton Chamber of Commerce, because, yes. And we passed a resolution last week for you, and I'd like to read some of it. And it is, whereas Y. Diane Matthews has done exceptional work in the city of South Fulton and all over the South, Hateville, East Point, College Park, Union City, Fairburn, Palmetto, Chattahoochee Hills, Atlanta, Southwest, and other places. We congratulate and commend you for receiving the 2022 Nikki Randall Servant Leader Award, and for other purposes. Whereas every year during Women's History Month, the Georgia Legislative Women Caucus recognizes outstanding women in Georgia who exemplify the leadership and inspiration embodied by Representative Randall. And whereas during her current 12 years here in the legislature as president and CEO of the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce, Diane Matthews has spearheaded the organization's membership growth, staff enlargement, branding campaigns, including the Chamber's name change to the Greater South Fulton Chamber of Commerce in January of '22. And whereas she currently serves as the president of the South Fulton Convention and Visitors Bureau, member of the South Fulton Advisory Board of the United Way of Greater Atlanta, member of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and many more organizations. Whereas Diane is a woman of unassuming greatness whose humble acts of kindness and generosity have uplifted the entire South Fulton community. And whereas it is abundantly fitting and proper that this outstanding accomplishment of this extraordinary servant leader be appropriately recognized. That is what we're doing today, recognizing a great leader in South Fulton and beyond. Thank you. And we grew up together and went to a little Catholic school just a few miles from here, Our Lady of Lewis. And you were in my sister's class, and you and my big sister got me in trouble all the time. So I don't want to give, this is good trouble I give you today. Thank you, we love you, and let's give her a hand.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're doing a fine job today. Good morning, colleagues. I rise today to recognize two outstanding members of our community in Gwinnett County. And they are up in the gallery today with their family and friends, and I will have them stand up once I'm done. But it's Chef Hank Reed and Laura Drake. And I just want to thank them for all they do to impact the lives of others. And, you know, we don't often recognize our local heroes and those that are serving our communities just out of the goodness of their heart. And I am just so proud they represent the 9th District, the mighty 9th. And I did award them both with Outstanding Citizen. They have met our Secretary of State today, too. So this is our Outstanding Citizen Awards, which they truly deserve. And it just so happens that it is International Women's Day, and it is also the Nikki T. Randall, where the Women's Caucus is recognizing outstanding women. So it is my pleasure to introduce you all to Miss Laura Drake. Laura has served our community by assisting families who are struggling with just basic life for over 20 years. For the past 14, she has served as executive director of the Southeast Gwinnett Cooperative Ministry in Grayson, where I live, where she has done so much to help meet the physical hunger and needs of the community, particularly during the pandemic. The Southeast Co-op found a way to distribute nearly 2.5 million pounds of pantry resources and $600,000 of emergency financial assistance to our community. Additionally, she has served as a bridge, and her organization has served as a bridge to unite people, having held several racial healing gatherings, bringing together people from all different backgrounds to work on cultural competency and dialogue. And that is Miss Laura Drake. Laura, would you stand up with your family? Oh, you're over here. I'm thinking you're over here. So everybody, if y'all will welcome up. Outstanding lady. And I wish I had her energy. Her energy is infectious. I love her. My next honoree is Chef Hank Reed. Chef Hank has a lengthy career in the restaurant business, having gone from dishwasher to owning his own and helping to build them from others up to the ground. He's been a leader in our community, starting nonprofits to support families and their children in the areas of culinary arts and athletics, finding a purpose in mentoring young adults to be productive members of society. Hank's skill and passion led him to start Let 'em Eat, Inc. to further serve the less privileged among us. Since 2020, Let 'em Eat has provided over 150,000 meals to those in need, and he is just getting started. So, Chef Hank, would you rise and please, the members in the chamber, please recognize Chef Hank Reed. And just to add, we do have privilege resolutions for them as well. Senate Resolution 630 and Senate Resolution 631. And you will have those today sometime. Thank you all. Thank you for everything you do.
Chair recognizes the Majority Whip for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll be brief. I have a group in the gallery as well. Maybe the last group that hadn't been recognized, but they're folks from back in the 51st District from the White County Chamber of Commerce Leadership Group. We have Beth Truelove, the president of the White County Chamber, and we have the great mayor of Cleveland, Josh Turner. And along with him, you have a lot of constituents. If you haven't been to the city of Cleveland or the city of Helen lately, I encourage you to take your families up to North Georgia this summer. We have a lot of amenities like vineyards, wineries. You can come up to the city of Helen and shoot the hooch with the gooch. But thank you guys for being here, and y'all give them a welcome to the Senate.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today to recognize a hero and a friend of mine, Sergeant Jeremy Hadaway, who serves myself and the senator from the 15th back in Muskogee County with the Muskogee County Sheriff's Office. This past weekend, Sergeant Hadaway became engaged in a chase with some individuals who had stolen a vehicle. Once the individuals attempted to wreck Sergeant Hadaway out, in which they succeeded in doing, they exited their vehicle and engaged Sergeant Hadaway in a gunfight, where Sergeant Hadaway was shot in the shoulder. He maintained his composure and was able to return fire and neutralize two of the individuals, The others ran and were captured in a foot pursuit. I'm proud today to say that Sergeant Hadaway as well, the other individuals have been treated, released from the hospital, and that they have been given accommodations at the Muskogee County Jail. I want to remind everybody today that there are men and women out in our community each and every day serving and protecting us. And I want to thank Sergeant Hadaway for a job well done. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 44th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise briefly today to recognize the Servant Leader Award for the 44th Senate District. Ms. Dorothy Mabry, she is a graduate of Spelman College. She has served as Special Assistant to the Southern Regional Administrator for the United States Department of Health and Human Services and Administrator for Children and Families. She has provided leadership and direction for specific work-related activities for the accomplishment of Health and Human Services Southeast Regional Administrator. Mrs. Mabry has volunteered to support several community projects, and she is a member of Cascade United Methodist Church here in Atlanta. She has served and supported various outreach activities, such as providing food and sleeping bags for the homeless and supporting children through Coats for Kids. Ms. Mabry is a woman of unassuming greatness whose humble acts of kindness and generosity have uplifted the entire Southeast United States. She is in Aruba today, but her family and friends are watching this session. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I yield the well.
You have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection or adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? Chair sees none. We're now moving on to the rules calendar. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 379?
Senate Bill 379, a bill by Senators Strickland of the 17th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 4 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to vocational, technical, and adult education so as to provide for the State Board of Technical College System of Georgia to establish a program to promote the creation and expansion of registered apprenticeship programs in the state and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Economic Development and Tourism recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Thompson of the 14th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Economic Development and Tourism offered the following substitute to Senate Bill 379, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 4 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to vocational, technical, and adult education so as to provide for the State Board of Technical College System of Georgia to establish a program to promote the creation and expansion of registered apprenticeship programs in the state and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th to speak to Senate Bill 379.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. I bring to you Senate Bill 379. We as a state have celebrated for the 8 past years being the #1 state in which to do business. And because of the leadership of Governor Kemp and the policy supported by this body, Georgia has come out of COVID even stronger. We're seeing businesses flock to our state to take advantage of the business-friendly environment we have created. We have the lowest unemployment rate in the history of this state. Those that are looking for a job have never had as many opportunities for work as they do today. But all this good news for our economy comes with a new set of challenges. Business owners with demand for the product or service they're providing are struggling to hire and retain workers that have more opportunities than ever. It seems sometimes the #1 qualifier for a potential employee may be just showing up for an interview. Workers have to decide whether to go what is seen as a traditional route of higher education or take the immediate jobs that are available now. There are especially many young people in our state that have a desire to work now and do not need to spend tens of thousands of dollars and try to earn a degree they may never use. With Senate Bill 379, we are establishing a statewide apprenticeship program that will directly connect business owners with workers in the high-demand jobs of today. The business owner will get the support to help build a long-term employee while getting the work they desperately need now. Workers will get to reap the benefit of a personal investment in a position and to have the opportunity to build a career now instead of bouncing from temporary job to temporary job or taking on numerous loans to go down the perceived traditional route of higher education. With a focus on the most high-demand and rewarding jobs of today, Senate Bill 379 will allow Georgia to double down on the federal apprenticeship program. And under the guidance of our board of our technical college system of Georgia, we'll provide opportunities for employers to apply to be sponsors of an apprentice. The apprentice can take advantage of this program from the age as early as 15 and will earn a certificate for completing the training needed in the high-demand field. Senate Bill 379 sets forth the framework for Georgia to invest and build new relationships between business owners and students, those looking for a second career, or any citizen of this state that wants to earn the opportunity to build a meaningful career. Mr. President, I want to thank my colleagues and all the partners that worked together to make this bill possible over the past few months, and I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 10th with a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yale?
Yes, sir.
Senator, I just want to thank you for bringing this legislation. As a small business owner, I realize the importance of being able to recruit early in the hiring process, and I believe this bill does exactly that. So thank you for bringing this legislation.
I appreciate your support.
You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I ask for your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 379.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Bill 379? The chair sees none. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 42, the nays are 4. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 381?
Senate Bill 381, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 16613 of the OCGA relating to penalties for violating Code Section 16609 through 16612 so as to increase the penalty provisions relating to pimping and pandering to provide related matters and further purposes. Mr. President, the Second Committee on Judiciary recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th to speak to Senate Bill 381.
Senate Bill 381 is a very straightforward piece of legislation. What Senate Bill 381 does is it makes sex trafficking in Georgia or being a customer of a sex trafficker in Georgia a felony. As I started putting this legislation together, I was reminded of some things that I think we hear about sex trafficking so much that we tend to forget the devastation caused by this industry. It is a $300 million industry in the state of Georgia alone. I also tend to forget that all of us come from different walks in life. And some of us see things in our particular profession and others may not see. I understand that the health care professional sees certain pieces of legislation that comes through this chamber through different optics sometimes than I do. I realize that the insurance professional, as I sat on that committee, sees things differently when they come across our desk while we're trying to make decisions that impact insurance and premiums and other issues that impact Georgia citizens. And I'm afraid that lack of vision, and please understand that ignorance is not a mean word. We all are ignorant in some areas. But if you sat down and you watched a movie that was written, I believe in the mid-90s or late 80s, and at the end of that movie, the gentleman who purchased sex carries the sex worker back to the area that he picked her up. She did not want to get out of the car, so he drug her out of the car and he dropped her on the sidewalk. And he took the money that they had agreed that he would pay her for sex for a few days, and he dropped it on top of her body as she lay there on the sidewalk. He went back and got in his Mercedes-Benz, and he drove away as the money, and I quote from the movie script, as the money that he paid her blew around the sidewalk and into the gutter, and she crawled to the gutter and retrieved the money. Then what you have is you have the reality of sex trafficking in Georgia. But I want to tell you, the movie script I just quoted you the ending from was the movie Pretty Woman as originally written. It was originally called 3,000 because that's how much money that the Richard Gere character was going to pay the Julia Roberts character to have sex with him. That was the dark reality of prostitution and the dark reality of sex trafficking and the dark reality of men who go out and purchase women for nothing more than to have sex with. But Hollywood, in its wisdom, turned it into a romantic comedy so that we who sit in front of the screen and watch these movies leave the movie theater with some kind of fairy tale feeling about prostitution and the men who go out and purchase women. But the reality of it is this morning, right now, there are females in the state of Georgia who are being rented and purchased for sex. And I had a good friend tell me, so Randy, what you're telling me is if a man just goes out and buys sex, it should be a felony. And my short answer is absolutely. Because not only are they buying sex, but they're destroying lives. Every one of us are born, male and female, and looked into the eyes by our mother who sees light and hope and joy and potential. And I tell you, there's an evil in this world whose goal is to steal your hope, your light, your joy, and your potential. And this is done every time a woman in this state is sold and rented for nothing more than physical pleasure. And so with that, I ask that everyone in this chamber vote for this legislation so that those out there who live in this community and who want to go out there and be a part of that group to purchase this stuff understands that in the state of Georgia, we do not take lightly the souls of our citizens. And at the same time, those who feel that they are trapped in a hopeless world where the only way out is to sell themselves will understand that the members of the Georgia State Senate are willing to stand up for them when no one else will. And with that, Mr. President, I'll yield for any questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd with a question.
Thank you. With a senator yield.
Yes, sir, I will.
Well, I want to say first, I support your bill, but I had gone to vocabulary.com to make sure I understood what pandering is, and it said politicians are often panderers, especially the ones who say or do anything to get a vote or raise money. Is this going to have any effect on this body, or maybe especially more the body across the hallway from us?
Mr. Chairman, as long as they are not purchasing other human beings, it should have no problem. It should not impact them at all.
Thank you.
With that, you have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 6th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Really, I rise just to bring an issue with existing law that the sponsor and I have talked about, but that I just want to highlight to make sure that maybe we can take care of this when this goes across the hall, if it's voted out. And specifically when you look at lines 40 through 42, and there, what we talk about is that if you are convicted of the offense of pimping or pandering or running a brothel, for example, and then it says, and that offense involves the conduct of someone under 18 years old, then you have heightened penalties, right, and heightened punishment. I believe that the point of that was to be more punitive if the object of the offense, the sex worker or the victim, in terms of trafficking or whatever, is a minor. But this also, because the language is so broad, you could have someone who is paying for a sex act that is 17 years old, the person, the prostitute, whatever, however you want to characterize it, is not a minor, but that 17-year-old is subject to the higher penalties just because the offense involved the conduct of one under 18 years old, while the same act could happen with a John or someone who is committing the offense of pandering, and he's 50 years old, and he would not be subject to the heightened penalty provision. I think that this is probably something that no one intended, but as we all know, this is the kind of stuff that can end up with really bad consequences, we all know, with respect to Gennaro Lewis. So I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 22nd to speak to the measure.
Mr. President, as far as increase in punishment is absolutely fine in this particular situation, but what concerns me is that we're heading backwards, and that is that mandatory minimum term, and it is only for 1 year, but it still is heading towards where we have come from, mandatory minimums, that key language. And this starts the process, because in fact, one person actually had stated that, well, look at the type of crime it is. That's exactly how all this starts. Because it starts off saying, well, it's pimps and pandering, so they should get that. And we start there. And then we say, well, it's only 1 year, and then we start there. And then the next time we have something, well, it's this type of offense, but it's only 5 years. And there's this type of offense, but it's only 7 years. This starts the process. I've created 2 bills dealing with sexual exploitation, so I think my record is clear about how I feel as far as sex crimes are concerned. But I know how this goes through. Anybody can see where we're heading on this particular ground. And it's just a ground that we've come from and said we weren't going to do this anymore. The issue about the judge having discretion, if the prosecutor and the defense attorney agree, they're not going to agree to a less term other than the mandatory minimum. The mandatory minimum is the year. What they're going to say is, well, we're starting off with 1 year mandatory, I'll give you 10 months. I'll give you 9 months. But it still is mandatory minimum jail. They're just cutting down the mandatory jail time. I can just tell you, point blank, judges are not hesitant to put people in jail, especially for offenses like that. You don't have that issue. But we have decided as a state that we're moving, and as a nation, quite frankly, that we're moving away from this. And I can just see where we're starting and where we're heading, because the argument would be, it's pimps, and it's only 1 year. That's the deterrent. And then the next argument would be, well, it's this type of offense, but it's only 2 years. So that's the deterrent. And we just keep going down the same rabbit hole. So I believe that I can vote no on this. My record is clear as far as sexual offenses are concerned, having actually enacted 2 bills dealing with sexual exploitation, but I don't want to see us head down that same path. And with that, I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair sees none. The chair recognizes the senator from the 29th to close debate on Senate Bill 381.
First of all, I want to tell you I appreciate the comments for the senator of the 6th. She's right. That has nothing to do with what we're doing here today. As far as the statute goes, she's correct that that is already a part of law that could be clarified. But that has nothing to do with it. You don't see any of that section underlined in here as far as lines 40 and line 41 as a clearer interpretation. As far as my friend from the 22nd, I want to be clear. I've spoken to judges, and the judges have said that they completely, the judges I've spoke to, let me be clear on that. Those are judges in the Superior Court level who have said that they completely support the section that allows the prosecutor and the defense to work it out. It makes it so much easier for the judge. But I want to be real clear about this. This is not a bill about policy. This is not a bill about politics. This is a bill about policy. Now, we can play the political game and say we're starting this over again and this is the intent to do this and this, but we're going to find out that is not the case. It's really, really simple. If the lights on the wall behind me are green, it means you understand the devastation that are being caused to these people. And let me explain to you who these individuals are. And I can tell you from a very well-educated standpoint. These individuals, these women who are being abused, they are from at-risk communities. These are not wealthy young women and wealthy ladies out there doing this. These are women who come from at-risk homes where there is no father or they've been forgotten about. And this also comes from those trapped in addiction who are out there trying to support their habits by selling themselves. And then there are those vultures on the wires and on the sidelines who are absolutely waiting to pounce upon these victims. And the damage they do is almost absolutely irreparable. So understand this. This is not about being a Democrat. This is not about being a Republican. This is about being a human being. This is about the humanity of our friends, of our fellow citizens, of those that we drive by every morning with our doors locked coming to the Gold Dome. That's who it's about. And if those are the ones you care about, those lost souls and forgotten souls, then this is what we do to protect them. That we're not talking about shoplifting. We're not talking about auto theft. We're not talking about property. We're talking about people. And please support this legislation. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the well.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill? All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 42, the nays are 11. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 393?
Senate Bill 393 by Senators Dolezal of the 27th and others, a bill to be a town and act to amend Title 46 of the OCGA relating to public utilities and public transportation so as to provide for anti-discrimination obligations of common carriers, to provide for a short title, to provide for legislative findings, to provide for definitions, to provide for statutory construction and applicability, to require common carriers to publish transparency reports, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowser of the 46th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities offered the following substitute to Senate Bill 393, a bill to be in town and act to amend Title 46 of the OCGA relating to public utilities and public transportation so as to provide for anti-discrimination obligations for common carriers and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
For what purpose does the pro tem rise?
Point of personal privilege, Mr. President. I'll be brief.
Proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, we have a group in the gallery that I'd like for y'all to welcome if you would not mind. Would y'all stand up, ladies from Point West? Y'all give them a warm Senate welcome. I venture to say that the tax digest in the city of Atlanta will go up due to their shopping this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. President.
Did I see your wife mixed into that crowd? The gentleman knows of what he speaks. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th to present Senate Bill 393.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I bring before you Senate Bill 393. Functionally, this bill is simple. Legally, this bill gets a little more complex, and so I'd like to take a couple minutes and unpack a few concepts I think will help us understand what we're doing here today. We are essentially classifying under state law social media companies with more than 20 million users as common carriers. So what is a common carrier? The notion of common carrier goes all the way back to English common law, and it recognizes there are certain things that you need to be able to participate in equally to participate in society. So when common carrier laws were first recognized, they applied to things like railroads and couriers. The courts and our country later recognized them to constitute things like telephone and cable companies. So what we are doing is we are recognizing what Justice Breyer stated in a Supreme Court opinion, that the social media is the 21st century public square. And what we are stating here is that you cannot be discriminated against for your viewpoint, for your gender, for your age, and other things that we'll get to in just a second in this 21st century public square. I'm sure that some questions will arise later that will allow me to unpack some of the legal precedent here. And rather than covering that now, I'll just cover that when the questions come. I want to take a minute, if we can, just walk through the bill. Lines 18 through 36 establish social media companies as common carriers, social media platforms, excuse me. Lines 76 through 86 are essentially the heart of this bill, and they outlaw who a common carrier cannot discriminate against, and that includes in line 79, they cannot discriminate based on the viewpoint of the user. Line 80, the viewpoint expressed or another person's expression. 3, geographic location. 4, the actual or perceived race, color, ethnicity, religion, religious beliefs, political affiliation, national origin, sex, gender, sexual orientation, or disability of a user or another person, or of a class of users or a class of other persons. And that is essentially what is protected here. Lines 98 through 109 outline essentially the scope of the law, and they recognize that this bill applies to people who reside in the state, users who reside in the state, do business in the state, or share their views in the state. And then this is where we capture in line 105 the common carriers that we believe, the social media companies, that we believe are established as common carriers because of their ubiquitous use, and we have that at 20 million users. And then two last points here, lines 115 through line 124 outline what social media companies are still allowed to do. They are still allowed to have standards for publishing, and they are still allowed to censor out lewd and obscene material and offensive material. And then lastly, lines 126 through 128 provides transparency requirements, which includes the social media companies outlining what their standards are. And line 182 to 183 outlines enforcement provisions, which include a private cause of action. And Mr. President, with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 26th with a question. To your right.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
I do.
Senator, when you talk about social media, I would call that interstate commerce because it crosses state lines or whatever. Isn't there a federal law that deals with this now?
We outline and I don't know the exact line number, I could find it if you gave me 3 seconds, but we outline that anything in here is not to be construed as conflicting with the Interstate Commerce Clause. I will say, though, that you and I probably, as we do on a couple different issues, maybe 1 or 2 different issues, have differing opinions on what the Dormant Commerce Clause properly should do relative to the 10th Amendment and states' rights. But no, we do not believe, just in the same way that we do not believe that cable companies or telephone companies, which are regulated as common carriers and do business across state lines, are protected by the Dormant Commerce Clause.
Senator Yield.
I do.
Senator, isn't it true all of us have opinions just like we have maximum glutamus, but isn't it true that federal law covers this, and basically, isn't it true, basically what you're saying is you're going to overrule federal law?
No, sir, federal law does not cover, well, federal law does cover my ability to express my viewpoint, but what we've seen is numerous examples of social media companies violating the rights of those people to express those opinions online. And I'd be happy to give you some examples or not.
Do you continue to yield?
I do, Mr. President.
The chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd. To your left.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I will.
Isn't it correct that part of Facebook, for example's value to a user would be to rank incoming information to make the platform more relatable, more enjoyable, more relevant to that user?
I know that's what Facebook believes, and this gets to, and I'm not sure if your question is going here or not, but I'll be happy just to maybe get a step ahead of you, and if not, just do this for the edification of the body. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, as you know, gave online platforms the ability to regulate content. If you remember back to the days of the screeching modems as we connected in AOL, Instant Messenger, and things like that, legal precedent at that time allowed newspapers, for example, to be held accountable for things that they printed. What Section 230 does is it exempts online platforms from being held accountable for offensive or illegal material, as an example. And so the key here is that they are still allowed to censor or regulate, moderate that kind of content. What we are saying here, though, is that because, as Justice Breyer recognized, this is the 21st century commons public square, that we do not believe that viewpoint-based censorship or censorship that falls under the other categories that I mentioned should be allowed on these platforms.
Well, thank you for that recitation, but the question was, isn't a core part of their business filtering and ranking information for users to make that experience more relevant to that particular user? I mean, isn't it correct that that's sort of what their entire business model is based around, as well as then the advertising revenue that flows from it?
So I think what you're talking about is inbound communication, right? So it's the algorithms that might do shadow banning and things like that, or that might even just elevate an ad. We've all had the experience of being in our house talking about buying a chair, and the next thing we know, we see chair advertisements on Facebook. This does not prevent that. What this does is this allows outbound communications. This allows me to express my viewpoint and not have my viewpoint removed or your viewpoint removed.
Okay, but on that point, so my question is, if your viewpoint is not something that the business has decided is relevant to me as a user, and they do not think, based on all their algorithms and their entire business strategy, that particular commentary is something that would be useful, exciting, or relevant to me, you're saying they have to show it to me?
They don't have to show it to you, they have to allow me to express it. So if you were to look up my Facebook page and say, for example, I had shared an article by the oldest newspaper in America during election season, just hypothetically. And let's say that just hypothetically, Facebook had decided to remove an article from, hypothetically, the oldest newspaper in America because they believe the story to be false. That would no longer be allowed because we see the danger in that, because as we saw in that particular case, the story was true. And we've seen numerous examples, particularly really throughout the last year, where the fact checkers have gotten it wrong. Things have been removed that should not have been removed on the basis of being false. So I do want to read to you, Senator, a quote from Justice Breyer in a dissenting opinion, which he was joined by Justice Ginsburg, Justice Sotomayor, where they stated that, quote, requiring someone to host another person's speech is often a perfectly legitimate thing for the government to do, unquote. And so the courts have recognized, and there's a number of court precedent that goes around this. The Rumsfeld case is one of them, but Pruneyard is probably the most applicable, in which a mall shopping owner was required to allow protesters to pass out pamphlets because the court stated that the opinions of the protesters would not necessarily be prescribed to the mall ownership. And so Turner, of course, is probably the biggest case that goes back to this as it relates to cable, where the cable companies were deemed to be common carriers and thus were deemed to be required to carry content even if they did not agree with it.
Will the Senator continue to yield?
I will.
So a newspaper can decline to publish an op-ed, correct?
A newspaper can. That's the Ternillo case that you're referring to, yes.
And and that's part of their First Amendment right, correct?
Correct. So
why
what's
should
happening,
someone be able to say whatever they want? Wouldn't it violate that principle then if Facebook is forced to publish something similar to a newspaper, which can decline to, under their First Amendment rights, publish content?
It's a great question. And so, and again, this gets somewhat technical. Facebook is arguing vociferously in court that they can censor content under 230 precisely because they're not publishers. So Facebook themselves are drawing a line between the rights of publisher, the liability protection that they would have because they're saying they're not a publisher. So we fall under 230, and you cannot sue us because somebody posts lewd material because of 230. However, we also can moderate the content in the way we wish because we have a First Amendment right to do so. And those two things are in conflict with each other legally.
Will Senator yield for one more question?
Absolutely.
I'm aware that legislation similar to this has been passed in a couple other states, and it's correct, is it not, that they were promptly enjoined by the federal courts due to violations of the First Amendment?
Yeah, so Judge Hinkle in Florida referenced the net choice case and ignored really Pruneyard and Rumsfeld in his ruling, and we think that will probably be overturned as unconstitutional.
Thank you.
The background for this bill actually was part of dicta in the Knight versus Biden case, wherein one Supreme Court justice outlined this exact path in his belief that social media companies are indeed common carriers. Thank you for your questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st for a question.
Senator Yield?
I do.
In lines 181 through 184, it talks about if a common carrier fails to comply with a court order, that there will be daily penalties. Are those penalties left up to the discretion of the court?
Those penalties are up to the discretion of the PSC or the court.
Okay.
So this falls under the code section, Senator. Great question. This falls under the code section of the Public Service Commission, similar to our other existing common carriers.
Thank you.
You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will yield the well and be back to close argument.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 56th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank the senator from the 27th for bringing this important bill. Just about 1 year ago, I was the victim of grifters, a group of narcissistic social media antagonists from Washington, D.C. that spread lies about me, copied my employer, and then all of my employer's top companies and businesses they work with, and it ultimately cost me my job. I'm thankful to those of you, many of my colleagues, who literally stood next to me that day when I reported what had happened. They worked very hard to cancel me, and they failed. However, we have a big issue that confronts us at this day and this age. We had people come testify in the Regulated Industries Committee that were supporting social media and big tech companies. In fact, some said that they thought they were doing a really good job, I quote, and they felt big tech was getting better. If anyone believes that the social media companies and big tech companies have acted responsibly and ethically, you may also believe in the tooth fairy. It's well documented of the censorship, political election interference, leanings, algorithms, and different messages they have been used. In fact, I will guarantee you it's going to happen from this bill and this debate as we are talking. There are very similar consistencies of what's happening today as what happened when America industrialized. Think about the times when new markets boomed, the railroads, oil, electric, and others. During times of extraordinary innovation, a few major companies came to dominate the field during those times. Those monopolies or trusts were squeezed out others in competition. They froze innovation, but more importantly, they wielded significant power over the public and government. Our history books have taught each one of us the stories of Rockefeller, Carnegie, and others. It was my Republican Party that was a pro-business party then as it is today. And it was under the leadership of President Teddy Roosevelt who spearheaded the charge of trust busting. This included a variety of techniques to make sure that the worst offenders were either broken up or they were governed and regulated appropriately. And guess what? It worked. President Roosevelt said, and I quote, "There's a widespread conviction in the minds of the American people that the great corporations known as trusts are in certain of their features and tendencies hurtful to the general welfare." It's important that we identify what social media platforms are doing. They do not create their own content in most cases. That is true. They are a marketplace for other people. But because of that, they say they assume no responsibility whatsoever of what's communicated on their platform. Well, that's interesting, because if they don't have any control, why is they, in their daily activities, expressing editorial content over that and making changes and giving ups and downs based on what content would move forward or would not? Most of us are familiar with broadcast journalisms. That's what we watch on TV. That's what we see in the newspaper. That's what we read in magazines. It's the same story that goes out to everybody. Social media is very different. They're called a narrowcaster, where they take a specific message and send it just to you, and then just to you. They use algorithms to pinpoint every single thing about you: where you eat, where you shop, your browsing behavior, connecting where you've shopped to where your social media is, to the geolocation services on your phone. Now, the court, as we know, has not interpreted the First Amendment as limitless or absolute. We know today there's liability on defamation, obscenity, and we know you can't shout fire in a crowded theater, and you can't shout in a public library. Social media companies are considered natural monopolies by most major economists. The complicating factor with these social media platforms is what they use to keep you coming back over and over again. There's the old adage, if it bleeds, it leads. It refers to the sensationalism of news that we've all seen and probably been victim to. Violence, scandals, anything that might sell on the front page. So that everyone knows social media's goal is to bring you back over and over again, and that's how they monetize you. Nothing is free. You are the product. So they show you emotionally explosive content to get you to try and share it with as many people as you possibly can to somehow create self-affirmation. It's hyper-personalization. This is a very, very skilled algorithm that is used to make sure that you continue to come back and you get stuck in what's called an echo chamber or a filter bubble. Everyone here should know what an echo chamber is. We have seen it a lot. The rise of the populism that's coming from social media is creating awful behavior in our society. And in fact, we are talking a lot about mental health right now and the impact. And social media is one of the major causes and problems that we're having. And that's coming from sociologists, psychiatrists, and even political scientists. Most of us will say America is more divided than ever. Well, on social media, we sure are. In fact, social media will say this body right here, the Georgia State Senate, is divided on every single topic. All we do is fight on every partisan issue that has ever come through those doors. And yet, if we really were to do the math, we would know that almost everything we pass this year is going to be nearly unanimous. Working together, hand in hand, sans a few issues. But social media won't show you that truth because apparently it doesn't sell. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a choice to make. This would not have solved my problem from last year. But the consequences of social media platforms who have acted irresponsibly, who have been untruthful, who have created a divide in our country as we have never seen before by perception and not reality, have to be scrutinized. This is negatively impacting our state of Georgia, which we love. It's impacting our nation, and candidly, it's impacting the entire world. Very serious conversations and legislation on how to regulate these monopolies or trust have to take place. This is the first of many steps we need to take, and I hope you'll support the bill. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for? Chair recognizes the senator from the 6th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I do not take issue with the fact that social media companies are out of control, right? I think that Section 230 is problematic because it is used as a weapon and a shield by various social media platforms. They can't be responsible for the information that's put out there, but then at the same time, they have the ability to actually look at information, you know, put an algorithm in place, say this is good or this is bad. I mean, this is problematic. What I have issues with respect to this bill is that I do think it's unconstitutional, and I think it's preempted by federal law. I think that from a very serious place, this needs to be dealt with at the federal level. Section 230 needs to be repealed. Social media needs to be regulated. That is clear. I mean, we've seen its effect on election. We've seen Russian propaganda used against us, try to pit each of us against each other. And then the problem is with a bill like this, I mean, I have concerns in terms of the senator from the 56 when he had issues last year in terms of information that was put out on Twitter about him. Would this even allow a social media platform to take it down? Would there be consequences for them? So it's one of those things where I understand kind of the underlying issues with respect to this. I share the concerns. Believe me, I have children. It's a real issue. And obviously it's an issue in terms of our country, in terms of the propaganda and how it's being used, especially in election years. But this really isn't the way to do it. It just isn't. So I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 22nd to speak to the measure.
Apologize for walking up the center aisle. I'll be brief on this. Quite frankly, when you look at this particular bill, my opposition to it, I would say that initially, the initial language of the bill was good when it talks about the fact that there's a fundamental interest in protecting basically a person's right to speak. It says that the state has a fundamental interest in doing that. That's 100% correct, and we should follow that. The other fact of the matter is that I believe that persons ought to be allowed to speak no matter who they support. And what a lot of persons don't understand is there's people who are being deplatformed and demonetized on the left and on the right. I believe persons who support, whether it's President Trump or support reparations or whatever it may be, they all ought to have the access to have an opportunity to speak. But we also realize that it's not an unfettered position to be able to speak. And that also exists, and that already exists under federal law. One of the cases that have been coming out is a Texas Supreme Court case just recently over the summer that talked about the fact that what we ought to go to, and I think what is the better route, is to basically have a duty of care standard. That basically these platforms ought to have a duty of care to their consumers. That there ought to be a duty of care like we do with any other particular business. And that Facebook should know that they have a duty of care to make sure that they don't necessarily have persons planning riots on their particular platform. There's a duty of care to do that. There's a duty of care that you have adult websites ought to know, and this is one of the things the court pointed out, they have a duty of care to know that you shouldn't be putting on their tag a 14-year-old when they're talking about underage sex. So the court recognized that there is a duty of care that these platforms have. And they said that the best route to go would be through these common law standards that we have. So let's say we kind of went to that. That's what we have right now for every business, because we talk about being business friendly. For every business, there's a duty of care that we have to make sure that their place is safe. But one of the things that we as a body don't require from businesses, and this I think becomes where it becomes very problematic, we don't require a business to now list every time they've ever been sued. We don't require a business to list every particular aspect of how they're trying to make their premises safe. We don't do that. I think we're getting into a very dangerous ground that we're going to now when we start talking about this regulation. Some of us are mad at Facebook, some of us are mad at other platforms, so it's easy to say, and as I said, there's those on the left that don't get as much attention, they're being demonetized and deplatformed too. So it's easy, though, to get mad at them and say, we want you to list out everything you're doing to make sure that you're following these particular policies. But then I would say, I want to list for every business that exists in the state of Georgia that invites customers in, I want you to list out how you make your premises safe. That is the common law standard. We deal with that when we go to court, when a person sues. But we don't require that from our businesses. We don't sit up there and say we want you to list everything that you're doing, whether it's to make your premises safe or what you're doing to make sure that underage teenagers can't get alcohol and things of that nature. We need that list put up biannually. We need that list put up regularly for everybody to see. And not only that, we want to know every time you were sued. We want to know the content of every lawsuit that ever came through. We probably would be laughed at if I actually tried to present such a law. But that's exactly what this particular bill does. This is not a pro-business bill. It's not a friendly business bill at all. It gets us on a slippery slope that's very dangerous. And I've been saying that lately because I'm telling you, we're heading to some bad places on some of this stuff. And I'm not necessarily the greatest champion of the chamber, but I don't believe, Chamber of Commerce, but I don't believe that we ought to be asking businesses to list this. And just because right now it's the telecommunication businesses and Facebook and Twitter and persons we don't like, doesn't mean that if things change in this chamber one day, that all of a sudden businesses that you do like are going to be required to make lists too. Now, I will also be opposed to that also. But let's get up from the fringes and let's deal with what we talk about in Georgia. Moderation is the key. Thank you. With that, I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Bill 393? For what purpose does the senator from the 13th rise? Chair recognizes the senator from the 13th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I come today with a personal story why I support this bill. And when I tell you this story, I mean, you each obviously going to make your own decisions, but I want you to know what's going on with social media that will affect you and your children or your family. I have a child that dated a lady, and when they basically decided they were going to call it off, she didn't want to call it off, he called it off. Well, this person, we found out later, had some serious issues. I'm not going to call any names whatsoever. The bottom line of it is this person goes on Facebook, and she gets on a women's chat only. Only women can be on this group. and she starts disparaging my family and my son, and it goes on and on. And people from Oregon, from Washington, D.C., from Washington State, from the middle of nowhere, pick this up, and they start putting his picture out. They start disparaging his character. They call him a rapist. They call him a molester. It goes on and on and on. So now, when you talk about going to the courts, we went to the courts. We went to the lawyers and we talked to them. You know what the lawyer said? We don't know how to even remotely go about attacking this. This is the most unbelievable thing we've ever seen in our life, that he cannot go on this page and defend himself. He has no defense on that page. He cannot defend himself. Only ladies or girls that he knows that are his friends can go on that page and flag those things and have them taken down. Only ladies can flag that. Girls can flag it and have them. He can't do it. You can't, as a person, as a man, I could not defend myself. So my character is continuously being berated and disparaged. I have no way of defending myself. And then you say, let's go to court. Well, there's no laws out there, and social media is not governed. I mean, the senator over here said we need to do something with social media. I couldn't agree with him more. We have got to put some restrictions and some controls on this because it is out of hand. And I tell you, I wish this bill was stronger. I wish there was a way to put more teeth in this bill for social media coverage, because when your character is disparaged, I don't care if right or wrong, you deserve the right to be able to speak to that. Now, on Facebook in general, you can respond, but on these other chats that they have that are part of their empire and part of social media, once again, if it's a women's only chat room, which it is, with thousands and thousands of women that have no idea who my son is or who anybody is, they just pick it up and run with it. That is wrong. That is why I support this bill, and that's why I wish and hope that you all support this bill, because I have a personal, I understand how it works, and if you haven't had this touch your family, I assure you it will come in the future if we don't regulate it. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Bill 393? The chair sees none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 33, the nays are 21. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Before we move on to the next measure, I want to take a second and recognize former State Senator Vincent Fort is with us here today. Well received. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 441?
Senate Bill 441 by Senators Hatchett of the 50th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 15 of the OCGA relating to courts in general, so as to provide for the reestablishment of the Criminal Case Data Exchange Board as an advisory board to the Council of the Superior Court Clerks of Georgia, to amend Title 35 of the OCGA relating to law enforcement officers and agencies, so as to provide the Georgia Crime Information Center with grant-making authority and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Judiciary Committee offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 441, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 15 of the OCGA relating to courts in general so as to provide for the reestablishment of the Criminal Case Data Exchange Board as an advisory board to the Council of Superior Court Clerks of Georgia and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 50th to present Senate Bill 441.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I bring before the Senate today Senate Bill 441, the Criminal Records Responsibility Act. Many of you have read or heard about the issues plaguing our state's ability to share accurate and complete criminal history. The president of this body took on the problem, and with the support of stakeholders across Georgia, we now have this bill to address the issue. Currently in the state of Georgia, there are as many as 7 million criminal charges in the state's database that don't have final dispositions. There are more than 5 million of these charges that have remained open for several years. In many cases, these charges have been dealt with through conviction or the charges were dropped. Charges that remain open negatively impact people's ability to get a job in housing and provides incomplete records to law enforcement, employers, licensing boards, and others seeking background checks. Lack of accurate record sharing also hinders the state's obligations to notify crime victims. This is a difficult issue that we've decided to tackle. Obviously, there's been a lot of support in the chamber. Every senator in this chamber has signed on to this bill, and I appreciate your support. We're tackling an issue that really affects a lot of Georgians. And Mr. President, I want to specifically thank your counsel, James Beal, who's been a tremendous part in bringing all the stakeholders together. We've got a uniform system of rules now that we think will address the problem now and help us address the problem if it is to come up again in the future. And with that, Mr. President, I'll take any questions.
Doesn't appear that you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
I was waiting for your roommate to ask a tough question over there. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Bill 441? The chair sees none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. I want to take a moment to thank the senator from the 50th for your hard work on this and getting it across the finish line here in the Senate. I want to thank my entire staff for their work, specifically James Beal. Thank you so much for working with the Senate and the committee process to get this across the finish line. Chair recognizes, Mr. Secretary, can you please read House Bill 342?
House Bill 342, a bill by Representatives Washburn of the 141st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 14 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to electrical contractors, plumbers, conditioned air contractors, low voltage contractors, and utility contractors so as to prohibit certain advertisements related to plumbing and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Economic Development and Tourism recommend that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Thompson of the 14th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Committee on Economic Development and Tourism offer the following substitute to House Bill 342, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 14 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to electrical contractors, plumbers, conditioned air contractors, low voltage contractors, and utility contractors, so as to prohibit certain advertisements related to plumbing and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 14th to present the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very simple bill. It's a transparency bill. All this is saying is making sure that we have individuals that are plumbers. They're not extending themselves out for hire as if they're master plumbers or not. We had this happen during COVID. We're just saying that you need to represent yourself as you've extended it out. With that, Mr. President, I'll yield the well unless there's any questions.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 342? The chair sees none. The questions on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 54, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. The chair recognizes the majority leader for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, 9 March 2022.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read your announcements?
The Rules Committee will meet immediately upon adjournment in 4:50 today. The Higher Education Committee will meet in 4:50 at 1 p.m. today. The Insurance and Labor Committee will meet in Mez 1 at 1 p.m. today. The Health and Human Services Committee will meet in 4:50 at 2 p.m. today. The Public Safety Committee will meet in Mez 1 at 2 p.m. today. The Regulated Industries and Utilities Committee will meet in 4:50 at 3 p.m. today. The Judiciary Committee will meet in 307 of the CLOB at 4 p.m. today. The Natural Resources and the Environment Committee will meet in 310 of the CLOB at 4 p.m. today. The Government Oversight Committee will meet in 310 of the CLOB at 5 p.m. today. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the Appropriations Chairman for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senators, for your work on the budget. If you don't mind, I need to see the subcommittee chairs over here at the front of the rostrum for just a few minutes after adjournment.
Any other senator wish to make an announcement? The chair sees none. The majority leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Wednesday, March 9th, 2022 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. That's my line. All those opposed, no? The ayes have it, and the Senate stands adjourned.